This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Hello and welcome to Dialogue. China has downgraded its diplomatic relations with Lithuania to the level of charge d'affaires, the lowest rank of diplomatic representative. The decision came after Lithuania's breach of the One China principle over Taiwan. What does the downgrade implicate? What's behind Lithuania's provocative move? And how will it affect China's ties with the West? To discuss these issues and more, I'm joined by Pavel Felgenhauer, Russian defense analyst, Professor Shending Li from the Institute of International Studies at Fudan University, and later Cui Hongjian, director of the Department for European Studies at the China Institute of International Studies. That's our topic. I'm Xu Qinduo. So, Professor Shen, Lithuania is far away from China, and the relationship between the two countries, to be frank, is not that strong, even economic and trade relationship. So why, for starters, please introduce to us, why would Lithuania choose to breach the One China policy and to provoke China here?
Well, for two reasons. One is a political reason. The other is economic reason. Politically, Lithuania used to be a part of the Baltic as one of the 15 members of the former Soviet Union. And it has difficulty with the former Soviet Union. It is one of the first three to split from Moscow. And even Russia tried to establish some CIS grouping, and Lithuania was not a part of it. So it has some anti-Russia, anti-communist kind of mood. And this, unfortunately, has been extended to China, because China has its own brand, remembering our old heart and continue to our socialist course. So I think this is a big ideological difference. But that may not be extended to economic area. But Lithuania wants to build its economy, and complains that it has invested more in China than it has received from China. It does want China to do more. Therefore, it has adopted a convenient approach to be friendly with the U.S. When the U.S. is beating Russia, beating China, so Lithuania would try to build a bridge toward Washington to get a resource. And Washington actually has rewarded Lithuania. So this is a part of Lithuania's tactic. Small countries, small wisdom, getting big money from America ankles them. And at the time, U.S. want to isolate China. Even though President Biden said U.S.-China should cooperate whenever possible, but he also said U.S. would compete with China whenever necessary and confront with China when it must. And Secretary Blinken even said more bluntly that bringing Taiwan to the UN circle is not a political necessity. It is also a real necessity. So U.S. is committed to lift Taiwan's international standing, and Lithuania tried to help. To be a part of the U.S. strategy.
Well, Pavel, if you look at the issue from the surface, it's kind of hard to understand, right? But obviously, it's a strategic choice. It's the intentional move by Lithuania against China. So, what do you see this issue, from the point of view, like in Moscow?
Well, for Moscow, I wouldn't say that this is an issue that's very kind of seen much in Moscow, much reported. It is reported, but not that extensively. Lithuania is seen as, of course, a country that's following the American line very much, like many other Eastern European countries, former Soviet republics. and in Moscow they're branded as kind of Russophobic, and that would fall in line that this is the Americans, plotting against Russia, plotting against China, and doing the bad things. Of course, Europe doesn't see China as a threat at all, while America does, and so there are problems there with America trying to rally the Europeans for a kind of anti-China stand, and having this confrontation between a very small European country and China may help that. But you should also, I believe, that it is not just simply the Lithuanians are just following some kind of orders coming from Washington. They have their own agenda. They were once a great power in the Middle Ages in Europe. They were abused for many centuries by more stronger neighbors, by Russia, by the Germans, by the Polacks. And they kind of standing up to a great power, that's sort of what the Lithuanians do. They fought a guerrilla war after the Soviets retook Lithuania in 44, 45. I mean, they have their own agenda to standing up to great powers.
Mm-hmm. Well, Hong Jian, here obviously the Lithuania side said, they say this is not a violation of the One China policy. But for people who are not familiar with this One China policy, tell us what it is. And also, they say it's a change of the name, from usually Taipei Economic and Cultural Office to Taiwanese Representative Office. So what's a big difference does that make?
Also, I think now from the official stance from Lithuania government, it looks like try to get some more power to define what's a one China policy. I think, in fact, it's a totally, maybe misunderstanding and also misleading for this public opinion. Also, we know this one China principles, especially from a Chinese stand, is it just could be defined by China itself. I think recently the Chinese diplomats disclosed a very, very important document, signed by European Union leader more than several years ago, and before the European Union established the diplomatic relation with China. It is very clear that this kind of a one China policy from a European side, it just could be acceptable for Chinese side. So I think now for the Lithuania government is trying to, take the dictate that yes, there is a one China policy, but it's different from one China principles. So I don't think that it would be accepted by Chinese government. Of course, also the fact of the this event to change the name from Taipei to Taiwan, certainly it has been regarded by Chinese side that it's a real, very, very bad fact or very, specific action to damage the one China principle from Chinese side, and also one China policy from the agreement, also or common sense for both China and the European side.
Mm-hmm. Ding Li, the Lithuania side has complained, as you pointed out, they say, the Chinese investment is smaller than Lithuania's investment in China. But the issue is if you look at the relationship between China and Singapore, for example, Singapore is the largest foreign investor in China, and of course, they make a huge profit out of the investment. So it doesn't matter, if you see a profit, you do more investment. If you see little profit, probably less investment. Is that an excuse, or is that a real issue, real concern from their side?
Well, I think any reality of such kind of trade status, somehow trade imbalance, is out of some certain reality. And probably for these few years, Lithuania has less need for China to invest. And they may be lucky to have someone like Germany to invest. And after a few years, they may build even more strong relationship and China would invest a lot. Overall, China invests a lot in most of the country in the world than most of other countries would invest. So you may always find one unique exception. And Lithuania uses this kind of unique exception to say, oh, we want to seek a pragmatic benefit from another one. Of course, they may not really mean it, but they use it as a tactic, as an excuse to please someone else and to beat Beijing. They think they should be a leader, a political leader. No one in the world these days dare to lift Taiwan's office unofficially to sort of official status. They want to be the leader as the first country, the number one, to beat America. They are the leader. So this is what they want to present themselves. And I think, they will find themselves to be isolated because majority country in the world would not follow them.
Oh, well, Pavel, obviously, the U.S. has expressed a strong support for Lithuania, and also, there's real support. For example, immediately after the downgrade of the diplomatic ties, the U.S. has basically lent, $600 million credit to Lithuania. So, is that what Lithuania is seeking from Washington? Or some others say, Lithuania want to impress the U.S., want to stress its importance and enhance its ties with the U.S., or to secure a permanent military presence in that country for fear of Russia, for example. Is that the case?
Well, the economic ties between America and Lithuania are not very strong or very serious, so it's not directly economics. The credit from the Import-Export Government American Bank, that's a specific kind of credit. It's going for specific export deals to support American exports. Again, it's not that important. Lithuanians' economic ties are with Europe, absolutely. And they had a lot of ties with Russia, which have been largely downgraded after 2014. So yes, but in politics, in defense relations, America is important. There are American troops on Lithuanian territory. They believe, the Lithuanians believe that's important. They right now are housing political immigrants from Russia, in Vilnius, from Belarus. So they see themselves as a frontline state in the standoff between the West and the East. For them, American commitment is important. And since China economically also is not very important for them, they're ready to do that, what other European nations won't do, because for them, China is a very, very, very important trading an economic partner, and they are for China. So this is a kind of a bit of a screw in the works inserted, most likely. So Washington most likely wants this confrontation to maybe even get a bit worse. I would believe Europeans right now do not. But of course they'll support Lithuania as a member nation of European Union, a member nation of NATO, and hopefully it won't go further than just this downgrading economic relations. I hope it's going to stay on this lower, but still it's not total break off of relationships between Beijing and Vilnius.
Well, Dingley, if you look at the U.S. support, strong support with a visit, by I think Under Secretary, and also the credit from Washington, and a visit by the Lithuania official to Washington too. So, what's Washington seeking by throwing its support behind Lithuania in its confrontation with China?
Lithuania is a U.S. tool. The U.S. grand strategy is to compete with China by undermining China's international competitiveness and China's international influence. This is the idea from Obama to Trump and now to Biden. Biden's catchword is competition. And Trump's idea is making America great again, which in a similar way, which says not to make China great. So they are just identifying, because China is becoming greater and greater, somehow making America less great. So America is upset.
As Pavel said, Lithuania is a member of the EU, a member of NATO. Now there's a risk, let's say, somehow EU could be dragged into this showdown between Lithuania and China. So what's your take on that?
I think now in European Union, certainly we can find out the diversity of response to these diplomatic tensions between China and Lithuania. Certainly we can find out some, member states or even some parliaments from member states from European Union that try to give some, same or similar voice with the Lithuania government. But indeed, now the big question is how could for European Union to find out one voice on this issue? As we know, recently European Union tried to show its solidarity not only in some other affairs, especially in foreign policy. So now I think it's time for European Union to show its one voice on this issue to China and to international community. Also, we know that the European Union could do something in this way is, on one side, always try to help China to believe that the European Union still uphold this one China policy, but at the same time, to give some support to Lithuania and some other politicians to damage the one China policy and the one China principles. So I think now for China and the European Union, exchange, especially for the summits and for some other, exchange channels between China and the major member states, I think China should have a more clear, stance on this issue, and to help European Union to understand what's a serious products or results once there are some more, people or some more countries in European Union to do something like Lithuania did.
So, basically, China will try to prevent, this domino effect, so-called, like, prevent from any other countries following suit of Lithuania on that front. Hong Jian, is that a difficult job for China to do?
Firstly, I don't think there is a very pressing pressure or issues about the domino effect from Lithuania. On the Taiwan issue, because also Lithuania, there are some very, very specific reasons behind it for Lithuania government to play with this Taiwan issue. And I think for most of the European countries, they do have a very clear understanding about the importance of one China policy for bilateral relations between China and them. But of course, at the same time, I think China needs to also take care of some maybe uncertainties from some countries, especially in the background of China-US gaming, and also in the background of the government change. If we look at the case of Lithuania, is that the political change and also more and more geopolitical consideration, and even a kind of a so-called pressure from a so-called public opinion will play a more important role to change the or to to have some more negative impact on this policies from these countries towards China.
Mm-hmm. Well, Ding Li, to pick up what just we talked about, obviously this issue goes beyond Lithuania. It's really about the China-U.S. relationship, as you said. The U.S. is trying to compete with China, sometimes trying to undermine China's presence or China's influence in other parts of the world by playing the card of Taiwan question here. And how likely it is for China to say, oh, we are going to cut off the ties with Lithuania completely?
I cannot exclude that possibility. Naturally, Lithuania is saying they have not changed their so-called one China policy. And for China, we are saying that only one China, don't play that card. To be precise and to hit the point, I think Lithuania is playing one China, one Taiwan card, making China, mainland China, which we call China, which covers Taiwan, to be unparalleled with Taiwan. So Taiwan current leadership using the name of ROC, but actually they say they are only Taiwan. They should be ROT, Republic of Taiwan. And they will not announce it, but they are enjoying it. And this is a very dangerous thing. We are not competing with Taiwan for one China, and we are facing one China, one Taiwan. And that's how the US is saying through recent Biden President Xi video conference. China say my one China is 3 communique. US said no, 3 items. First is 3 communique, and the second is Taiwan Relation Act. The third is 6 promises or 6 guarantees to Taiwan. And the last of the 6 conditions is the US does not accept that China's sovereignty extends to Taiwan. In the past, it's secret. It's the Reagan government's internal promise to Taiwan. But now it's open from last year. And Biden is telling Chinese president about this. This is US version of one China. But this is totally against our version of one China. So when they say they're one China, we think it's wrong. They are actually promoting one China plus one Taiwan. That is totally unacceptable. We cannot accept two China. We cannot accept Taiwan represent China. And we cannot accept one China, one Taiwan.
Right.
And this domino effect should never be allowed to take place.
Well, official name of Taiwan is Republic of China, so that's why we say one China.
That's the older name.
Yeah.
That's gone in 1949.
Right.
But
yes. Pavel, if you look at the U.S. policy or the U.S. strategy, in East Asia, they are challenging China, with the anchor of Taiwan, let's say. And then in the European continent, they are challenging Russia through the issue of Ukraine. And of course, for Lithuania, it's basically challenging both Russia and China. So what is the grand plan of the U.S. and Lithuania here?
To me?
Pavel, please.
Okay.
Yes, of course, Lithuania doesn't most likely have a strategy of its own. It's a smaller country, though it has a kind of, some historic ambitions and maybe sees itself as a front-line state, but of course it's following the American lead. The United States believes it's in a kind of serious competition, and they are deterring Russia, and they believe that China in the future will be a bigger threat, and they have to deter China, and they're mustering support. And in Europe, that's up to now being their reaction of the Europeans has been mixed. They want American security presence in Europe. There's a lot of cultural and trading and economic links across the Atlantic between Europe and America, but following America in a kind of anti-China policy, that's what Europe right now is restraining from. It would be, losses would be very high on both sides with Europe and with China if relations begin to go bad there. So the Europeans are hopefully trying to just give lip service to the American notions about the Chinese threat because they don't see any kind of Chinese threat. They see China as a very important and privileged trading and economic partner. So this kind of a diversion with Lithuania could basically help the American cause, though there are more serious issues at play than about the status of the Chinese embassy in Vilnius. With Russia and the West right now on loggerheads over Belarus, over Ukraine, there could be that Europeans will see it inevitable that they have to fall in line with the United States and also fall in line with American anti-China policy, and that's going to be really a shame.
Hong Jian, fundamentally, it's about the issue of Taiwan. Is really about the separatist activity in Taiwan, in the island. The secessionist, movement there. But when it comes to China, European, countries over here, what's the suggestion, you have for the Chinese government, how to proceed from here? I mean, to stabilize the relationship between China and the European and the EU, for example, despite this issue with Lithuania over Taiwan.
I think firstly we need to take the priorities. I mean, between China and the European relations, and we also need to take the weight of the Lithuania and the China-Europe relations as a whole. So we need to make clear that these wrongdoings from Lithuania or even some other politicians in Europe will not be the whole vision of China-Europe relations. Another suggestion is China should have some more dialogue exchange with European countries, not only just on the governmental level and also on people-to-people level. So we need to change the focus of some European countries or even some European peoples, especially in recent 2 years, as we know, because of the bad influence of COVID-19. And of course, at the same time, I think how could China to have some more common interests with the European countries? I think now it's a very, very decisive factor for the European side to change the perception about China. But of course, I think a very, very fundamental issue now for European side is what's the real meaning of strategic autonomy? As we know, the European leaders always stressed the importance for Europe to be a power, not to be a field for power for the gaming between big powers. So once there are some more, countries in Europe to learn something from Lithuania and to do something to challenge the one China policy, I think finally the European will find that if on this way, finally the European countries will become the field between the China and the United States competition.
Well, Ding Li, briefly, fundamentally, it's about the China-U.S. relationship. Here, Taiwan is, the issue standing out in that relationship. And what's your suggestion, to move ahead in terms of this very complicated issue here?
Well, we may expect this kind of phenomenon would stay for a while. We may not be able to reverse it, to downgrade the name of Taiwan's office in Lithuania, in Vilnius. And maybe a few other small countries would follow suit. But the trend of history has been such that a major country that conduct large-scale interaction with China, they have a lot to gain by continue their one China policy, not to accept two China, or Taiwan represent China, or one China, one Taiwan.
Well, that's
so this is a small phenomenon.
All the time we have. Thank you, Ding Li, over there. For this edition of Dialogue, I'm Xu Qinduo. Thank you for watching. See you next time.